am going to have a guest on today that has a really unique story, but not sadly, not a story that I haven't heard before or similar versions of it. Wendy Weber is an energy healer, and she's a parrot enthusiast, which I just love because I love parrots. She harmonizes her vibrant spirit with a talent for singer-songwriting, amplifying voices, and fostering unity. Her unique melody of resilience and empowerment triumph over adversity. I can never say that word for some reason. Adversity has been nurtured through decades of parrot championships and raising her late daughter who had Down syndrome and then Alzheimer's. So, Wendy, welcome. I know that you have a personal story in dealing with your daughter, and I just so appreciate you coming on the show today to talk about this.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with somebody who covers this subject because the subject is so important. So many people go through divorce, but when you have children, it's a lot harder to do it. And if you have a child with special needs, it's even more difficult.
Yeah, yeah.
I have been a stay-at-home mom, which was great because I did all of the volunteer work. I'm a founder here in Phoenix back in 1983 of the Sharing Down Syndrome Parent Support Group. And I did the newsletter for 10 years.
Wow.
So when after divorce, it wasn't after that 10 years, but after divorce, not being able to be there for my daughter coming home from school, which was problematic. I had to find a program for her because I had to go back to work. And the program was not optimal for her. When you think of having a child with a disability, any disability, what happens in the early years makes a huge difference on how far they can go and what they can accomplish. And I was stuck because I had to put her in a program after school till I could pick her up. That the school, she was in high school at the time, that the school could, school bus would take her to.
Right.
So I was, I was stuck. And the only other person in the house was her younger brother, who ended up having more responsibility for her than I would have liked.
But that's a reality, isn't it? I mean, as a parent, there's lots of things that we would like to be able to do, but reality sets in, right? And that can be tough.
Yeah, when you think of the kind of education that a child with a disability has, it's the same thing with somebody with autism, and it depends on how quickly that is ascertained, and so you can get the help. But those early years are critical, and it doesn't mean they ever stop learning.
Right.
I was warned that she was going to plateau, and these teachers with the blinders on, told me that. Well, what does a plateau mean? Plateau means you're kind of going, you're not going up, you're not going down, hopefully, but you're just going along. What happens during that time? The child, when you look back at it, is processing what he or she is learning, has learned, and you don't have to make big leaps all the time.
Right.
How often do you, as a typical person without developmental encumbrance, shall we say, how long do you take to really learn something and practice it, and so that you can get to the next level, or you're ready to go to the next level? And that could be long, it can be short. But that, to me, thinking back, that's what a plateau is, and it doesn't mean you're ever going to move on from there. That's what these teachers were taught, and they didn't think outside the box, which is why I fought to get her back to the local school to be integrated with her friends. And kids who didn't have preconceived notions and tried everything. It was amazing. But I fortunately, I was still at home at the time, and I was able to be involved with all the individual education plans and the field trips and everything else. So
yeah. And so one of the things that you do, so I'm going to switch this a little bit, and I appreciate you telling us that story, because I'm sure that that experience, because I think life experience really, it's there for a reason. And I think we can use even really challenging things like what you went through and your daughter went through and your family. You can use those things to really create fantastic things. And that's something you do now. Tell us a little bit about what you do now, Wendy, because I don't know anybody else that does the same thing as you.
Well, very few people do the music the way I do it, and I'm also an energy healer. It's all vibrational anyway. But with the music, well, I'll sing the introduction I usually sing. I write the songs that make your message sing for your occasion or your business thing, taking your story and making it rhyme so people remember who you better each time.
I love that. Because you're right.
Yeah.
The other day, I was talking to a friend. So I grew up in Edmonton, around Edmonton, Alberta. And there was this place there that was called the Lido Restaurant. And their jingo went 5050. If you're hungry, call the Lido. And that has been 45, maybe 50 years since I last heard that. And she started saying it on the phone and I could finish it. And that, that's amazing that music can make things memorable, right?
That's why they create little music for children to learn. Somebody in another group I belong to, was talking about doing little poems to teach financial concepts to little kids. Wish I had learned it back then. What's even better than a poem is a song.
Right.
And most songs rhyme. Not all of them do, or they're not exact rhymes, which I know how to use that if I need to. But there's something about our brain that music opens up memory. It's not understood yet. The music opens up all kinds of emotions. But when we're open to learning in the way that we feel it the best, music is probably one of the best ones. But of course, rhyming is great.
Yeah.
But not everything has to rhyme. You might have a melody and a good beat that the rhyme doesn't matter so much. But I think most people prefer rhyme, which is why all the nursery rhymes.
Well, I was going to say, when you were saying that, everybody learns the alphabet with that song, right? Everybody learns the alphabet.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
This is so funny because my husband had a massive stroke in 2011. He's since passed away, but he could not speak for a long time after his stroke. But it was so funny because when he would be in the speech and language pathologist, and he was also paralyzed on one side of his body, but she could start singing any Johnny Cash song and he could sing it. He could say all the words. He could carry the tune and he could finish it completely all by himself, but he could not count from 1 to 5. If you asked him to count from 1 to 5, but he could sing the whole thing of a Johnny Cash song. So she said, yes, a lot of times with stroke victims, they start with singing because they can remember the words and then gradually they start, changing the neural pathways and get them back into speaking again. So I had forgot about that until you brought that up.
Well, when you think about when Leila, my daughter, when she was in preschool, they had art therapy, they had music therapy, and she actually sang before she spoke. The brain of somebody with Down syndrome doesn't develop the way the rest of our brains develop. But the music seems to, and it depends because they're all different, but the music seems to be something that opens up learning with people with disabilities. And I don't know if you saw the last time Tony Bennett sang in concert, it was with who's that other singer who did all crazy outfits and everything. She's become a movie star too. You start a song, I mean, he couldn't have a conversation. and he remembered all. You start the music, and he remembered the whole song, and he performed it the way he performed it for decades and decades.
Yeah.
That hits another part of the brain. That part of the brain evidently isn't damaged, or if it is, it's not damaged to the same extent. I mean,
Right.
that's amazing. I've sang the song I wrote for my daughter for her bat mitzvah, started singing some of that. She may not have been able to sing it anymore, but she recognized that it created a response in her as we were losing her to this devastating disease, illness. It's actually, it's a lot of that's man caused by what we consume. And the music, the way I handled the grief, because she died just a few months ago. I had this song I wrote for her bat mitzvah that captured her essence. I hang on to that. I wrote a song for my late mother, but she was alive at the time, and I edified her. We were on a trip, and I edified her with this song about her. Totally different type of music, totally different feel to it, because she grew up in a totally different era. And I can't tell you the reaction that she had for being edified by a song about her and nobody else. It didn't belong to anybody else, and how it made me feel to do that for her. And after she died, I was doing a session on grief and how a personal song can help you get through it easier. You're going to go through it. Everybody has their own way of going through it. There's no one size fits all ever.
Right.
I sang this song, and the person who facilitated the event I was at and facilitated other events, he told people, when I heard this song, I knew who this woman was. You want to be remembered? You want to have a legacy for your family to go on? This is who your grandparents were. I did a 35th wedding anniversary song recently. I got everything in. You'll never hear a song like that anywhere else, because this is their song. And the engineer who helped me record it said it's too long. And I said, no, it's not. Because people will be listening to the words. And I sang it live. It was a local event. And people came up to me. The guests came up to me. They were so thrilled. The things that they recognized, things that they didn't know. And it was amazing. Yeah. Why is that? What does the music do? The music opens not only your brain, it opens up your heart. It allows the emotions to come in. It allows you to feel the experience. And it is unique. This song belongs to nobody else.
Right.
Things about their church, the things about their love story, the things about their son, the things about their tragedies was all in there. And they didn't think I could do that, but I'm talented enough lyricist that I was able to do it, and the melody fit their love story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's something that most people can't do. I can't do it.
Right.
And most people just write songs that are singable. The songs that I write, can I write a singable song? Yes. It won't have as much information in it. But these songs are meant to be listened to because it's their story, and it's intergenerational. You have beloved pets you want to remember. You got all these pictures. What are you going to do with them? You need a song about them. What's the funny thing that they did? How did they make you feel? What are the things that you took walks together? What was an experience on the walks? How did they like to eat? What did they do to tell you they wanted something? Or how did they act with other people, maybe with other pets? I don't know. What is it? You tell me what you want to convey, and you put it with that, and you have this to remember them by, and it's not just generic music. It's not just the slides or the movies. It is the song about them that belongs to them and to you. You spend a lot of money on your pets anyway. Why not create their own song?
Well, I love that.
And they may not care, but you do.
Yeah. I was thinking, for people that might be going through a divorce or may have lost a loved one, and I'm very sorry for your loss, Wendy, but all of these things that are happening, that, having somebody like, or you write a song for the kids to remind them how much both mom and dad love them, even though mom and dad aren't living in the same house. there's an entire book library of books to read to kids about how mom and dads can live in two different homes. Why not have a personal song that's got your kids' names in it and all the great things that they enjoy doing and all of these wonderful things that's going to be something that they can sing when they're, if they're feeling upset, if they're feeling sad. I've never thought about that, but that is fantastic.
Well, that's something I hadn't looked at either, because there's so many other songs to write.
Yeah.
But yes. So we're talking about a connection song. You're talking about making connections and memory for the good things. I don't particularly want to write a song about bad things that happen. It depends on if you want something that happened for this couple, that they lost loved ones in early age, and that was in there because they wanted it in there.
Right.
But to have to remember the good times and to remember that it's not your fault.
Right.
That's a big thing. My late brother had multiple disabilities, and I was the younger sister. I had a lot of responsibility from time to time. And one of the responsibilities I felt I had was to not tell my parents how I felt, how trapped I was, how, the sadness and different things, because I didn't want to add to their burden.
Right.
A lot of children do that, and it hurts them. Today, when I'm decades older than when this all happened, but that wasn't my responsibility. It caused, I had stomach aches. It was from stress.
Right.
And my parents gave me this icky green medicine that probably just made me sleepy and tasted yucky. But nobody asked me about how I felt. They had no sibling support. They didn't have a lot of parent support unless you were in a group, you were building something, you were raising money.
Right.
When my kids were growing up, they had sibling support. They don't have it everywhere, but they should have it. And I don't know, because my kids are much older when we got divorced. Although my son was a teenager, my Leila was a teenager. Do they have support groups and get-togethers for children of divorced parents or divorcing parents? They have to get that out. Maybe they'll never talk to an adult about it, but they might talk to another child who's going through the same thing. A song about that experience or about what they could get out of it to introduce a group like that could be very valuable.
Sure.
That'll open them up to taking a deep breath, letting it out. These are things I can talk about. This is a safe place to talk about these things. Safety. Where are you safe? Where are you safe as a divorcee? Where are you safe as a parent of a child with special needs? Where are you safe as my mother? We went to the National Down Syndrome Congress Convention one time. I went to a number, but she went with us one time. And she went to the grandparents session.
Right.
And I went to other ones. And I have a story that I put into Medium that she'd written in about, and I put it in the Down syndrome newsletter that I edited. And what do grandparents feel?
Right.
And for my mother, especially as a second generation with a disability, and my brother was still alive back then until Leila was 6. And they loved each other and they didn't know they were different.
Right.
That's a very poignant thing for me to write about. I have a couple of really wonderful pictures of them together. Where is the support?
Right.
It's not been done to the extent that I think we need. I think that's part of the problem with all of this angst today, lower vibrations. And as an energy healer, I can see that these groups could stand some of the energy techniques and things that they could learn to do to protect themselves from negative feelings, including the ones that come from their brain.
Right.
That attaches to you unless you know how to clear it or go to somebody who can. And there's techniques you can do in between to protect yourself. Yeah. They're not learning these things. And that's partly why there's so much emotional trauma that can be preventable. We do not have mechanisms in place to help prevent that before it happens, before it becomes a huge problem.
Something much more serious. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just,
yeah. I think those are really, really good insights. And I think it's something that parents need to think about too. You know, whether you've got a child with a special need, whether they're on the autism spectrum, whether they have, a learning disability, or whether
chronic illness falls into that category.
Yeah, absolutely. Or they're just, not just, they are suffering with an emotional issue because there's a huge change that little ones don't do well with huge changes. And so how can we as parents maybe think about some of these things? So Wendy, I really appreciate you bringing the whole concept of music and personal songs and support. And I think this is a really novel and unique, I don't think I've had a conversation like this. And I think it's so important. You shone a light on something that we all need to really maybe take a look at.
How about a song for an individual child about how awesome they are?
Yeah.
And no, they don't have that. They have generic songs.
Right.
But a song that you don't just plug in your name. It's a song. Well, we could do that. That would be a lot cheaper. But a song that has personality traits about them. It may be based on a song. I don't do parody. I don't sell parodies. I do them for fun. But a song, I can morph any song into another kind of melody. A song from some kind of adapted from a song that they love, that they listen to, about them. Just the top 2-3 things that make them awesome, that they can sing with simple words.
Right.
That they can sing about themselves, or their parents can sing to them as well. Those songs are meant to be sung.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Yeah. When people do want to find out more about what you do, what's the best way to reach you?
There's a few ways. Excuse me. I'm Wendy. Email me and say what you want to know or where you met me. Wendy at wendywebermusic.com, and Weber has one B. That's one way. I am on LinkedIn, Wendy Weber Music. I am on Facebook, Wendy.Weber, because there's lots of Weber, so you have to. And then there's Instagram is Wendy E. Weber, because somebody else took Wendy Weber.
I'll make sure all of that gets in the show notes. Wendy, thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for giving us this new insight. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. And I like to end any appearance that I do, if I remember to do it, is wishing you a joyous melody in your heart and harmony in your life.
Thank you for that, Wendy. Perfect wind up. And thank you all for listening in to the D Shift, and carry those words from Wendy with you when you go on your way today.